Hello, everyone, and thank you all for joining the stream, for your attention. Today is 27th of May. Now it's 11 o'clock in the morning, Moscow time, and I have prepared quite a number of news on some major developments. And I hope you will find this episode informative and useful. After news segment, I will answer to a question that I received from a member of our Patreon community. There was no other questions either from Patreon or Boosty or other support channels. And so, yes, that's been said. Dear friends, let me also mention that yesterday I did not make evening update because, well, these two, double streams daily are really overwhelming. It's just a bit too much. And evening, it happened that evening live streams were usually at the time when big channels had live streams, and therefore, my small project cannot really compete with these channels. So therefore, I don't think it's worth continuing these evening updates. Although maybe I will change time. Maybe I will do sometimes at 5 o'clock in the evening second updates, or I may actually add some walk and talk type of videos whenever there is plenty of news to report about, and I might publish this walk and talk video. But in the morning, I will try to maintain these live stream programs either at 11 o'clock as it is now, or maybe I will shift time for 10 o'clock. Let's see. I have not made decision on that yet. And so, yes, okay, that's being said. Let's go through some news now. And first of all, I will start with the Russian reaction or Kremlin's reaction on Trump's statements that he made yesterday in regards to Russian actions when it comes to long-range strikes on Kiev-controlled territory. We all know, I spoke about it yesterday, that Trump went to insult Russian president. Trump went to insult Russian people and Russia big time, which was absolutely unacceptable, obviously. And we have some response from Kremlin, which is that, well, according to press spokesman of the Russian president, Dmitry Peskov, Trump's statements were emotional overload, results of their emotional overload. Well, quite a mild response. Probably you would agree with me, especially if you take in account that Trump did not just insult Russian president while calling him a crazy, but Trump actually stated with his words indirectly that Russian lives are worthless, means nothing. Because we all remember what Trump said, isn't it? That Moscow had no reason to launch long-range strikes on Kiev-controlled territory. And he says this while perfectly well being informed, obviously, that for quite a while, Kiev regime, with the assistance of NATO countries, are launching volleys after volleys of the drones to strike deep into Russian territory, all of their European part, including on Moscow, right? And dozens of civilians were killed and wounded as a result of these strikes. And still, Trump went to say that Moscow had no reason for this retaliatory action. And therefore, I think Moscow's response should be much more stronger than this statement of Peskov that it was emotional overload on part of Trump. I mean, really? Are you kidding me? What is this? Let's go through this news. Anyways, the presidential press secretary, Dmitry Peskov, noted that U.S. President Donald Trump's statements about Russia's actions in Ukraine were driven by the tensions of the moment and their emotions. According to Peskov, the beginning of their negotiation process is a very important moment, which affects their emotional background of all participants in the situation. Okay, by the way, I don't know what to even say about this. And then he went to actually explain why Russia was conducting these long-range strikes. I don't know for whom. to whom he was saying this stuff, because Trump is briefed on a daily basis, right, by his dozens of secret services or whomever about major developments in this world, and including about Ukrainian crisis. And he knows perfectly well that Kiev regime, with the assistance of US included, was launching hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, thousands of drones, actually, by the way, if you take last week, to strike deep into Russian territory. But anyways, let's go. And by the way, Kiev regime actually understood Trump's statements exactly as it was said, that Russian lives are worthless, mean nothing. And they launched last night, earlier of this morning, over 100 drones again to strike deep into Russian territory and kill more Russian citizens. And well, according to the Defense Ministry, at least 99 drones were intercepted, including 56 drones over the bordering region of Belgorod. So we have some more details here. So between 8 p.m. yesterday and 7 a.m. this morning, Moscow time, on May 27th, air defense on duty intercepted and destroyed 99 Ukrainian fixed-wing unmanned aerial vehicles, drones. Of them, 56 drones were intercepted over the Belgorod region, 25 drones over the Voronezh region, 7 drones over the Vladimir region, 5 over Kaluga region, 4 over Tula region, and 1 each over the Rostov and the Lipetsk regions. So, I mean, that's the result. That's the result, by the way. Kiev regime and its NATO backers understood Trump's statements exactly as it was. Kill as many Russians as you can, as many civilians as you can, and that's what they try to do. And well, over 100 drones were launched, 99 was intercepted. And still, by the way, Peskov, press spokesman of the Russian president, went to explain why Russia was conducting retaliatory strikes. And there was last night, by the way, surprisingly, there was no massive Russian retaliatory strikes. I don't know why, but there was none. No reports about it, at least in Russian segment of internet. Maybe later on we will learn some more about it last night, but I did not see no reports about missiles being launched or drones to take out military and logistical infrastructure of the Kiev regime. But anyways, let's go through this news. Russia's armed forces have been delivering strikes on Ukrainian military facilities in response to Ukrainian attacks on Russian civilian infrastructure. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said at the news briefing. So yes, I mean, he went to, try to explain to whomever, by the way, I don't know what was the point in saying this. He tried to explain what was Russia doing and why was Russia conducting this retaliatory strike. As if Trump has no idea what was going on anybody else, by the way, who is at least slightly interested in this crisis, right? I don't know. I'm not satisfied, by the way, with this response from Kremlin. Definitely not. Maybe Putin himself don't care that Trump is calling him a crazy madman and so on. If Putin don't care, I don't care for sure, right? This comes with the territory. When you are a public figure, you might be called names, and they are used to it, I guess. But Trump downgraded the lives of Russian citizens. Trump insulted Russia and Russian citizens with that statement, and I think Moscow's reaction on that had to be very strong. But well, I mean, you tell me what kind of response is this, that Trump's statements were emotional overload. Really, man. And by the way, some may say that what Kremlin is trying to avoid further escalation, and maybe some people in Russian leadership are still thinking that there might be some de-escalation, and Washington may actually play some positive role in the escalation. And there may be some people in Russian leadership still believes that Trump and his inner circle is serious about pulling out US from this proxy war. And they are mistaken, of course. They are mistaken on that because yesterday afternoon, number of media outlets, by the way, here in Russia, and I guess worldwide, beginning to report that US, Germany, UK, France have lifted restrictions on long-range weapons for Ukraine. So that's the reality, by the way. There is no plans on the escalation, not in US, not in UK, France, Germany, or any other hostile nation. There is no such a plans. It's all games, right? It's all games, and unfortunately, Trump and his team did manage to conduct this disinformation campaign quite well, while they were diverting clearly attention of Russian leadership, and one may argue quite successfully, while acting as if they are for the escalation. But look at this report. US, Germany, UK, France have lifted restrictions on long-range weapons for Ukraine. That means that not just Germany will deliver and maybe already transfer the long-range Taurus cruise missiles to Kyiv-controlled territory and its military personnel to operate with these weapon systems, but potentially US also transferred its long-range missiles to Kyiv regime. Nothing to be said about France and UK. They already are, using against Russia their Storm Shadow and Scalp EG missiles, right? So that's where West stands. More war, more destruction, more killing. And if anybody thinks that West or US leadership is for the escalation, then I don't know, man. That is a mistake. Anyways, let's go through these details. The US, Germany, Britain, and France have lifted restrictions on supply of long-range weapons to Kyiv. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz said this in an interview with their VDR TV channel. We have some quotes here. There are no longer any restrictions on the range of weapon supplies to Ukraine, neither by the British, nor by the French, nor by US, nor by Americans, nor by us, and not by Americans, said Merz during this interview. This means that Ukraine can now defend itself, including, for example, by striking military positions on Russian territory. Until a certain point, it could not do this. Yes, I mean, Russian air defense systems should get ready, of course, to deal with their German Taurus missiles now that have a 500-kilometer range, which means, theoretically speaking, NATO countries can strike with their Taurus missiles on Moscow, for example. Attempt at least, right? And one should keep in mind that US also has a long-range cruise missiles, and at some point Kyiv was even demanding US long-range cruise missiles, and who knows, maybe Trump already delivered those weapons to Kyiv-controlled territory. So I was correct, by the way, all along when I was saying that before we will see the escalation, there will be at least one or possibly several phases of further escalation in this proxy war that West is waging against Russia. And that's exactly what is going to happen. And meanwhile, to continue exactly basically on this topic, that no one ever should think that Trump and his inner circle are some sort of a peacekeepers or peacemakers, or they want peace. No, man, they are hawks, right? They are all about war and killing of people. That's what they are, man. So Trump considers now additional sanctions on Russia, potentially this week. So US President Donald Trump is considering imposing sanctions on Moscow this week, frustrated by Russian President Vladimir Putin's actions and the slow pace of peace talks. Yeah, of course. The Wall Street Journal reported, citing people familiar with Trump's plans. Okay, impose those sanctions. Impose if we care. So that's where our situation stands, dear friends. No more. I made mistake myself, and I spoke about it yesterday. I was hoping that maybe Trump and his inner circle are really for the escalation, and they will use off-ramp that was created by Russian side to pull out US from this proxy war. But I was wrong, by the way, and I have to admit that, right? That I made mistake, I was wrong. I apologize for that. because I think it was a big mistake on my part. How could I believe even for a second that anyone from Western political class could be trusted? I mean, that was a big error on my part, by the way, right? And I'm afraid there are still people here in Russia, and unfortunately, most likely even in the Russian leadership, that still think that maybe Trump and his administration is about the escalation. No, man, they are not. Unfortunately, they are not. Meanwhile, Russia continues to work on memorandum that was agreed during the recent direct talks in Istanbul between Russian and Ukrainian delegations. So this morning, press spokeswoman of the Russian Foreign Ministry, Maria Zakharova, stated that Russian side continues to work on memorandum on Ukrainian settlement and will hand it over to Kiev as soon as the document is ready. And she also went to specify a little bit what this memorandum is about. So the memorandum on Ukraine will contain principles and terms for a settlement, said Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova. And key points are Moscow is developing a draft memorandum regarding the future peace treaty. Memorandum will be handed over to Ukrainian side as soon as it is prepared. Russia expects that Kiev will submit its developments on the memorandum simultaneously with Moscow. Kiev, with its attacks, is trying to show that it is capable of conducting negotiations from position of strength, but is demonstrating its insignificance. Whatever that means. China opposes Kiev's baseless accusations and political manipulations regarding the alleged supply of Chinese products to Russian military factories. Basically, key points is that this memorandum will be about some details about future peace treaty. And as soon as this memorandum will be, and the ceasefire, by the way, how ceasefire could be reached, maybe it's a timeline there, but we will have no good understanding of what these memorandums are about until they are actually presented to the public. And I'm not even sure it's worth spending time on this, because we all understand that globalist control regimes in the West are allies of the globalists, neocons, and therefore Washington, which is completely controlled by neocons, by the way, there can be no doubts about that no more. I mean, they are all about prolongation of this conflict, right? So what is the point to continue this nonsensical activity in regards to this so-called direct talks with the Kiev regime? I don't get it. Kiev regime decides nothing, right? So what is the point to talk to someone that cannot decide anything? I don't know. Maybe you know, dear friends, maybe you have better reading of this situation. Please share your take in chat or during the live stream, or in the comment section afterwards if you are watching this video after the live stream ends. But meanwhile, of course, situation continues to develop in Russian favor on the battlefield. In zone of special military operation, Russian forces are advancing all along the front line and improving their positions literally on daily basis. And therefore, Kiev regime is struggling big time, and so much so that they are now pulling out their border guards from Moldova, from the border with Moldova, and sending them on the front line in the Sumy region, for example. Vzglyad newspaper on that matter is reporting that Ukrainian armed forces have redeployed the troops from the border with Moldova to the Sumy direction. The armed forces of Ukraine have transferred their Chernivtsi border detachment, 31st border detachment, which previously caught draft dodgers on the border with Moldova, to the Sumy region. In addition, the Telegram channel North Winder, associated with the Russian troops group North, reports that the Russian Marines were able to literally defeat units of their elite 78th Airborne Assault Regiment the Lviv 103rd Separate Territorial Defense Brigade and the 15th Border Detachment combined assault units of the Ukrainian Border Service in just a few days. And you know what is the irony, dear friends? These border guards of Kiev regime were hunting down draft dodgers on the border and participating in forceful mobilization, basically. And now they will go into trenches, right? And let's see how long, how many days they will last there, or how many hours. Most likely, in many cases, they will have only hours of their lives left once they are on the front line. And I think justice being served in this regard, because these criminals were catching and forcefully mobilizing people, civilians, by the way, ordinary civilians that never wanted to fight any wars, right? And definitely never wanted to fight and died for this immensely corrupt Zelensky's regime, this terrorist regime, and for geopolitical agenda of the West. So now these border guards of Kiev regime will taste, will find out what is the taste of their own medicine. So justice will be served, at least in that instance. Artem, meanwhile, is reporting that Poland wants to earn big money on Ukraine. Everybody in the collective West nowadays are talking about how they're going to make more and more money on Ukraine. And Poland also wants a share of their cake. So let's go through this news for little details. Poland intends to profit from Ukraine's post-conflict reconstruction, Prime Minister Donald Tusk has stated during a visit to Euroterminal Slavkov railway facility in the south of the country on Monday. Tusk pitched their expansion of the site into a key hub for materials bound to Ukraine. It's not wrong to say we want to earn big money for Poland on the reconstruction of Ukraine. He told the reporters, we want to help, but we also want to earn money on it. And this special hub is needed for this purpose. And dear friends, of course, it's not about reconstruction of nothing. It's about further increasing NATO's logistical capabilities, because we all understand, or at least I do, that once this conflict will end, there will be no more Ukraine, most likely, on the political map. This creation of Bolsheviks will undergo full-scale disintegration, and the western parts of the Poland eventually will end up being claimed by Poland. Western parts of Ukraine will be eventually claimed by Poland, Hungary, and Romania. And for rapid deployment of NATO troops in that western part, of course, they will need more logistical hubs, more logistical means, right? That's what is going on. And when it comes to earning money on Ukraine, Poland will reclaim some 70% of Western Ukraine. That would be quite a bigger piece of cake for Warsaw, I guess. Although it comes with some nuances, because once Poland will reclaim that territory, they will have to deal with Ukraine, very same Ukrainian Nazis and the fascists and the terrorists, by the way, that they help to arm and prepare. And I'm not sure if Polish armed forces or the security services are ready to deal with those battle-hardened, by the way, extremely experienced Nazi formations that now formally are in Kiev regime's armed forces, but it's only a matter of time, and they will go completely rogue, right? They are already disobeying orders from Zelensky at their will, right? And a few more news, dear friends, today. I mean, this morning is relatively quiet news-wise, so this live stream is going to be shorter, but I have a few more news to share. The first foreign customer of the Russian fifth-generation fighter Su-57E will begin operating these planes in 2025. This was reported to us by the press service of the Federal Service for Military Technical Cooperation of Russia. quite good news, isn't it? That Russia is finalizing contracts about export of Su-57E fighter jets. E means export modification. Although the statement does not specify which country the customer is, according to unofficial data that is circulating on internet, this country is Algeria. So we will see. We will see in next couple of months. Probably Su-57Es will begin flying in Algerian Air Force. Good stuff, by the way. I was hoping that India would be first country which will have Su-57s in its Air Force, but well, maybe sometime in the future. But now, most likely, Algeria will be there first. And I will end this news segment, by the way, on this quite interesting news that I also shared on my Telegram and Twitter X page, that China and Indonesia just ditched the dollar, quietly. So while Washington clings to dollar dominance, China just rewrote the rules, and it only took, quite a short time. Under the watch of Premier Li Qiang and President Prabowo, China and the central bank governor Pang Gangcheng signed a sweeping deal with Indonesia to ditch the dollar and settle all bilateral transactions in national currencies. It is not just about trade. The expanded agreement covers capital flows, financial accounts, and investments. Major upgrade from 2020 deal. No SWIFT, no greenback or dollar, just a yuan and Indonesian rupee. And this is a big deal, by the way, because China is a major economy, and maybe some people don't really pay much attention to Indonesia, but Indonesia is, first of all, about 300 million people, if I'm not mistaken. It's the most populated majority Muslim nation, by the way, in this world. It's a huge. Indonesia is a huge, and trade between China and Indonesia is a huge, right? So this is definitely, I believe, this is definitely big hit on ambitions of White House to maintain dollar's dominance as a main world reserve currency. No, man, process of de-dollarization, as I said many times before, is absolutely unstoppable at this point, and give it another 10, 15 years. And even if BRICS would not be able to come up with its own alternative reserve currency, bilateral, trade between the countries will turn into national currencies. Process is already underway. Russia's trade, for example, is almost like mainly done in the national currencies with other countries. China is moving in the same direction. I think India will do the same, right? That will strengthen India's rupee. And many other countries, by the way. This is a trend in BRICS, among BRICS member states, to trade in the national currencies. And it is a big deal. It is a big deal. Of course, dominance of Western world, one of their keystones of Western dominance was dollar, right? That they were using as a hammer against anybody they did not like. But things are changing, and quite rapidly. So something to think about for White House there, because this is big deal, by the way. Indonesia is a massive country, massive population, massive economy. It's a big deal. Nothing to be said about China. Okay, and that's being said, dear friends, this is it for news segment. And as I mentioned in the beginning, I received one question from one member of our community on Patreon, and I will answer to this question. So, what about VDV? Yaroslav Pelichek is asking. Some say that they are useless kind of troops because there are no massive of use of airborne maneuvers anymore, but they are working great as an infantry. I know some songs about from For example, VDV is Neba Privet, and from Denis Maidanov, the VDV are so cool, writes Yaroslav Pelicek, and well, you kind of answered to your question, Yaroslav. Yes, currently we rarely see, if ever, large airborne deployments of their troops. And this is mainly due to existence of long-range interceptor interceptor missiles, air defense systems. But what is specific the detail about Russian VDV or Russian VDV is in Russian it's воздушно-десантные войска, right? So VDV during the Soviet Union, by the way, and now are sort of special forces. It's elite forces that are trained for much harder than let's say ordinary infantry formations, and therefore on the battlefield they are very successful, right? We have many examples of VDV's successful operations during the special military operation, for example. Well, even though maybe in the future we might not see large-scale airborne operations, yet again due to existence of these long-range air defense systems, probably special forces that are capable of being airborne will remain. Maybe number will decrease, but as a special forces unit that have certain capabilities that other units don't, they will most likely will continue to exist. And it does make sense because after all, there might be no large scale airborne operations when there are thousands and thousands of paratroopers being dropped and military equipment and so on. But well, helicopters, by the way, airborne operations still might take place and do take place on a smaller scale, but still so existence of this airborne special forces definitely makes sense. Question is about quantity, how many of troops you need in these special forces, and it's all up to each individual country to decide, right? Because geography scale is different between the countries. And so that is my answer. Thank you for your question, Yaroslav, and I hope many members of our community will join Patreon and will ask questions in the future, or the Boosty, by the way, for that matter. Before I end this live stream, dear friends, let me remind you, if I may, that this project is completely subscriber funded, and if you like my work, if you like my channels, please consider to support. You can do it through several means. You can become a member of our Patreon community, for example, or community on a Boosty by subscribing, becoming a Patreon or paid subscriber there. Or you can donate through PayPal or Boosty platforms. All the links are on this video in the description box and in the pinned comment, including this crypto, by the way. So yes, I can see Nidish Kumar. Hello, Nidish is commenting that quite shorter update today. Yes, it is the case. But as I mentioned earlier, dear friends, it's a relatively slow beginning of the day news-wise. Let's see what kind of developments will take place in next several hours, and if there is important developments, I will either make a live stream. And Zarael is here, by the way, also. Hello, and hello everyone, dear friends. Truly grateful for your attention. And yes, if there will be major developments, either I will make a live stream later on today, either at 5 o'clock or maybe at 11 in evening, just to test which time is better. Or I will make walk and talk video on the streets from the streets of Moscow, and I will publish that video. Okay, this is it for now, dear friends. Truly grateful for your attention. Have a wonderful day. And dear friends, if you come across my short clips from this live stream, I might upload one or two short clips. Please, if you will have time, just click that like button there also, and leave some commentary as here if you can. That will help probably to deal with the algorithm. And okay, this is it for now. Have a wonderful day and take care. Thank you for your attention.